This is Assassin Caitlyn Mid, a player who hated bot lane and Assassin so much, he became one. Meet Snowmoon Caitlyn, a master EUS player who managed to climb the whole way with this off-meta pick. But this is not just normal Caitlyn, this is Lethality Caitlyn, a pick that started to gain some popularity. But this guy is a true expert, able to play it perfectly with enemies dying from full health with one combo. In mid lane he's an absolute bully, who can snipe down his opponent from screens away, where walking into a trap is the equivalent of deleting your champion from the game, where catching her alone in the jungle is more likely to result in your death than hers. And he barely has to leave lane at all, walking just steps into river, and with the press of one button, side laners are deleted. This guy was one-shot too many times by mid laners and has made it his mission to enact revenge on them, even giving us a 200-page document with everything there is to know about playing Caitlyn Mid, and we have put it all into this video. But first, have you ever felt stuck in your current rank? You just can't rank up no matter how hard you try. I've been there, but this season I've been using our sponsor SkillCapped while I climb, and it's helped a lot. I'm well on the way to my dream rank. Their Master in Minutes courses are an absolute game changer. Imagine unlocking all of those crucial insights you've been missing all along, especially if you've been playing for 9 years like me. Bite-sized, impactful lessons that are easy to digest and to implement into your games. Whether you're actively trying to improve and climb, or just trying to learn something new while de-tilting between games, SkillCapped is perfect. Don't just take my word for it though, Riot Games also features SkillCapped directly in the League client. A great endorsement and completely safe to use. Whether you're a mid laner struggling with your lane, a jungler who wants to dominate, an AD carry who wants to 1v9 or anything else, SkillCapped has courses tailored for every role. And if you're still skeptical, don't worry, as you can try SkillCapped out completely risk-free. If you don't rank up while actively using SkillCapped, you'll get your money back, no questions asked. And right now I have a special discount exclusively available at the link below that you can use to sign up and see for yourself. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and get the rank you've always wanted. Back to our player, Snowmoon Caitlyn, also known as Zero Macro. So you can already tell just by his name how easy this strategy is for anyone to pick up. Starting in Season 3, his story begins like many of ours, ending the season in Bronze, slowly climbing for the next few years until in Season 7 he hit Diamond. But he was always searching for a champion to main. One that caught his interest was Caitlyn, pretty much just loving her appearance and British accent, describing her as his dream waifu. But at the time he hated playing bot lane, as he often felt useless in this role. This is when Nidalee caught his attention, falling in love with her ability to do massive poke damage from range, while still being able to straight up assassinate players. However, Riot didn't seem to share this same love, as she kept becoming weaker and weaker, eventually falling out of the meta. But this was when Zero Macro had a crazy idea. What if he could turn his dream waifu Caitlyn into that high range assassin he's now missing? So in Season 11 he created a new account for just Caitlyn, with a twist, staying away from that awful 2v2 experience in bot lane and playing her solo mid instead. And with a new lethality build he invented, it turned out she could be an assassin as well, taking this pick all the way to Master in Season 13. And we can't forget to mention to shout out Xfusion Saber, who helped make this pick popular and hit a higher rank. But this player started even before him. So why is he playing Caitlyn Mid, and why this assassin build? Well, normally in bot lane you have to split XP, being a lower level than the rest of the map. Combining this with bad supports and being stuck on one side of the map, it's often hard to have a big influence on the game, requiring these champions to buy lots of expensive marksman items to become relevant. And by that point you'll get one-shot by solo laners anyway. None of these problems exist when playing Assassin Caitlyn Mid. Cait Mid has great matchups, outranging most mid laners, also being a much shorter lane, so it's much easier to land this poke. Her ult in mid lane is also way more useful, only having to walk into river to reach top or bot lane with a high damage bullet. And that is where the assassin build comes in. In this new role with slightly higher income and a higher level, he can go for this much more effective snowballing build with cheaper items and capitalize on the great AD scaling Caitlyn has on her abilities. It may not sound ideal, as Caitlyn has such good scaling on her abilities with crit chance. However, taking a closer look, you may notice they have absolutely insane AD ratios. So if you combine Caitlyn's passive, Q, W, and ultimate, she gains a 557% damage increase from attack damage. Comparing that to a normal AD assassin like Talon, who only gains 420% damage from AD, and a Zed, who only gains 240% damage from AD. So to put that in perspective, when both of these champions have one item, a single Caitlyn Q will deal more damage than 3 Zed shurikens. And with this really good AD scaling, Caitlyn is able to scale really well into late mid-game, able to one-shot people later on, but still being able to bully laners straight from level 1. At level 1, taking Q, he spams auto attacks on the wave to get a push advantage, even happy to use Q on the wave as well to push it even faster. The reason he wants to push so badly is that once the enemy has no minions left, it allows him to land a full damage Q with no minions left to decrease the damage. Happy to even fight at level 1 as he can out DPS a lot of champions, especially mages. Taking E at level 2, if an enemy tries to engage, he can immediately net away, slowing them and giving him a headshot auto attack into a point blank Q, which again deals 100% damage with no minions to block it. If enemies opt into this trade, he can keep auto attacking them until they run away. At level 3, taking his traps, he has a special ward timing in between waves. He does it at this specific time to avoid missing any CS. This is a vital early ward, super important to his strategy, as he's going to continuously push the wave and pressure, so he needs to be aware of any ganks. He also has 2 specific traps he places down to prevent ganks. One in this spot in the lane bush, as it's a common jungle gank route, and one in this bush in the river to spot a gank even earlier. With these, he gets back to his game plan. His main goal, to pin the enemy under their tower. Not only will they be distracted by getting the CS under tower, letting him auto attack them and poke, but he can also place traps down behind the tower and funnel the enemy into this position between the tower and the wall, making it impossible for them to dodge his Q. He'll always max Q first, making it hit even harder. Due to this, it's a vital ability to land, so the main way he does this is waiting for enemies to go for a CS, and Q them while they're in the animation, ideally not through the minions to increase his damage. Also, having First Strike as his rune means that all of this high damage poke will be giving him a ton of gold in laning phase to get to his items even faster. Whether he gets an early kill or forces the enemy out of lane with poke, he'll base early on for a tier, fixing his mana problems for the rest of the game. At level 6 is where he gets his main assassination tool, a huge damage, long-range bullet. So since enemies are already low from all of this poke, as soon as he gets level 6, he can immediately ult them for a free kill. You can't stay in lane against this pick. Then basing for a serrated dirk for even more damage, and returning back to lane to keep pushing. Now it's time for his first trick, a special misdirection. He'll press E far away from the opponent, making them think he misclicked and is just bad. But in reality, he pressed Q during that E animation, aiming the Q at the enemy. The Q bullet will then come from the original location, not his current location, completely catching the enemy off guard, putting them low enough to then be killed by his ultimate. It's a common Caitlyn trick, but works way better with this build. At level 9, he says he can now one-shot the wave with his Q, meaning the enemy mid laner simply can't roam against him. If they leave, they lose all of the CS, multiple plates, and their tower, which our player aims to take every game by 14 minutes. Knowing this exact point at when you can one-shot the waves will outright win you games by itself, which is why I highly recommend SkillCap's course on WAVECLEAR. If you want your knowledge to be as good as this guy's, or even better, then click the link in the description. Now, one very special thing about Caitlyn Mid is how he roams. In fact, he doesn't have to roam. While pushing mid lane, he keeps an eye on the side lanes to look for enemies who are on low health. Then all he has to do is simply walk halfway into river and ult them, meaning he can roam without ever giving up pressure in mid. With our player taking Ghost and then building Ghostblade every game, it becomes even easier to chase down these kills or even avoid ganks. In mid game, he keeps farming and pushing wave with his Q, but his main goal is getting to objectives first, making sure he can set up traps around choke points like this, denying enemies from coming through the most common entry points. And these have amazing synergy with his playstyle, as if an enemy ever steps on one of them, they're probably going to die. Once his tier is fully stacked, he buys MANAMUNE to get more mana, with this item's passive granting a damage proc on all of Caitlyn's abilities, again just increasing his one-shot potential. And from here, instead of staying mid lane, he actually starts to split push. Using this super fast WAVECLEAR style, having the high burst and high tower damage, he can poke enemies out of a side lane and take their tower for extra gold. With the side lane far pushed in, he can take Baron with his team, again using traps to deny the enemies from getting in, to easily secure it, and then once he has Baron buff, he's able to group up with his team to threaten to end the game, simply thanks to his high range. The combination of Baron buff along with Assassin Caitlyn's poke and sieging abilities forces the enemies to engage unless they want to lose all of their towers, inhibs, and eventually the Nexus. One strategy he loves doing is waiting in a bush to get a pick, like a real assassin. After he's pushed these side waves, he waits for an enemy to come catch the minion wave. Just landing a Q into an ultimate on a squishy target is a free kill. And sometimes, with the first strike rune, you can practically one-shot players from full health with nothing but your ult. And enemies always have to be careful of any single trap you leave in any spot. If they try and walk into them to deactivate them, even just a high damage headshot can end up with another kill. And speaking of traps in the jungle, this is one of his favourite places to teamfight. For example here, we jump into a fight where Caitlyn has blown her flash and her ghost, is only half HP and is being chased down by a full health Akali, guaranteed death for 99% of AD carries. But notice how our Caitlyn kites back through through bushes and then traps them, so if Akali tries to follow him, she'll walk right into a trap and actually get one shot herself. Suddenly it's hard to tell who the real assassin is. In big team fights, basically 100% of his damage comes from the Q, the ultimate or headshot auto attacks. So unlike a normal crit build, with this build, before the fight even starts, it's vital to set up traps directly in front of him, protecting him from a dive, but if an enemy walks into them, it's a guaranteed headshot into a Q, just like how this Briar accidentally steps into one of them, giving him the empowered headshot into E and Q to gain a second headshot and increase his auto attack range, getting the kill. And after this kill, see how he immediately starts auto attacking minions, trying to stack up his headshot passive again. In this fight, unfortunately he doesn't get one in time, but it doesn't matter, as just one normal auto attack into an ult is enough to kill LeBlanc. And another quick net Q combo onto Lucian to kill him from full health as well, with the Guardian Angel not helping at all against Caitlyn, as you can place a trap underneath it, making for an easy cleanup kill. And of course you cannot teleport onto Caitlyn Mid either, as they'll teleport straight into a trap, joining in to immediate death. Still not expecting how much damage Caitlyn Mid can do. But now let's talk about what happens when it doesn't work, to show its weaknesses. Assassin Caitlyn is a squishy champion, reliant on items to do damage. Sure, early on with high range you're pretty strong, but if he ends up falling behind in these early levels, you'll be in a really bad position. You'll be so squishy that it's easy for opponents to kill you. Meanwhile, if you're behind in items, you won't do enough damage to kill them, even if they're walking straight into your traps. Additionally, with this build, Caitlyn becomes more of a caster than a marksman, so if you do struggle to land your abilities, you lose the majority of your damage since you don't buy any attack speed. So this build is much higher risk, and probably better in mid than in bot lane. So to rate this pick, she has a very strong early laning, with very few bad matchups, and any bad matchup she does have are much easier to manage due to the shorter lane. This assassin build gives her a much bigger mid-game spike, making her fantastic at snowballing through her strong early game, but with her great AD ratios, she'll still scale extremely well into late game. The main downside is that she's very difficult due to her lack of mobility, squishiness, and the mechanics required to position safely while DPSing at the same time. But overall, a very strong pick, as long as you ban a champion like Yasuo, a champion with a very high play rate, and a wind wall that removes all of Caitlyn's damage, something he bans every game. I could talk about other matchups with Caitlyn Mid, but our player created an amazing guide that explains how to play every single one you'll ever face. Link to that is in the description. For his full Caitlyn Mid build, he'll start Doran's Blade most games, but into easy matchups he'll start Cull instead, always buying an early tier to fix his mana issues, going into MANAMUNE to increase his damage, then buying Boots of Swiftness and Yumu's Ghostblade for a lot more mobility, but you can swap to plated steel caps against strong AD assassins like a Rengar. Next he buys Collector for even more damage, and to finish off enemies, after this focusing on Lord Dominic's Regard, getting it as enemies start to stack armor, finishing the build with a Bloodthirster for maximum damage, and finally some lifesteal. But when facing against tanks he can pivot to this build, giving him higher armor penetration and anti-healing to deal with the tanks. For runes he takes First Strike. He says this is much better than runes like Dark Harvest, since it not only provides a damage to increase his combo, but also gives him a faster early item spike thanks to the gold, able to adjust these runes again against tanks, taking precision secondaries to make sure he gets cut down. For summoner spells he's always taking Flash, but the second one is situational. Ghost is his default, but he does go Exhaust into bursty melee matchups such as a Fizz or a Zed to make sure he'll never die, or even having the option to go Cleanse against champions that can one-shot him if they land a CC, like a Zoe or a Lux. To see this Caitlyn Mid expert at work, his Twitch is linked in the description, and thanks again to SkillCap for sponsoring this video. To get a limited time discount, click the link in the description and get the rank you've always wanted. Thanks so much for watching.